All right. Good evening, folks. Wanted to give you guys an update for June 1st. So we made it through the 6 months of the year 2022. This is quite exciting because it's one of the most difficult years since COVID and since the pandemic began. Since the recessions of the past in 2008 and back in 2001, that type of thing. So we made it. So thanks for joining, everyone. Just wanted to say, keep the faith and, with proper planning. I'm not a financial advisor, but with proper planning and self motivation and love, the world can become a better place. So, in today's news, there's a lot of things happening. So I'm just going to be using my other computer here just to show some headlines. And let's see what we have here. So
it's a hurricane. You better brace yourself. JP Morgan is bracing ourselves, excuse me, and we're going to be very conservative with our balance sheet. That doesn't sound like a guy who's overly bullish about the environment, Liz, that we are in. And I also think those comments may be contributing to what you're seeing today.
So essentially, JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, came out today and said, there's a hurricane on the horizon and everybody better brace themselves for the impact. So that news, really what happened today is, the stocks took a retracement. The NASDAQ, S&P, et cetera, took a retracement because of those words that Jamie Dimon issued today. In Canada, they hiked up the interest rate just today. So happy June 1st, rate hike number 3, I think. All of this is to curb inflation, right? So, what we're seeing right now in terms of the crypto market, which is, barely getting off the ground as it appears, because it's only 1.2 or 1.3 trillion dollars in valuations. What we're seeing right now is, that's being retraced from the 2 trillion, from the 3 trillion back in the fall. But that is the future. And within the crypto market, there's a lot of, I would say, infighting. There's a lot of projects that will make it. There's a lot of projects that will not make it. But Bitcoin is almost 14 years old. In maybe about 6 more months, Bitcoin will be 14 years old. A technology that's evolved, been around and secured for 14 years, right? So that's significant. That is something that no one, not any government, not any entity can disregard, right? So whether it's a you put a $2 or a dollar or something into it, in the long run, you're looking at what is going to happen in the next 15 years, 20 years, right? What is your retirement plans? If things are going to be as heated as they say it is right now, what's going to be your economic plan for your retirement, for your family? So these are really critical times where the elites, some of the people who are well educated, are being laid off. That's due to company restructuring, right? So every sort of 8 years, you would have some reshufflings within organizations, right? So we are still looking at the supply chain issues that rocked the world due to the pandemic. And we're also dealing with the rapid increasing of interest rates, which is meant to slow down the inflation, right? Once that inflation is under control, then the interest rates could, uh, also retrace a bit, right? So what we're seeing is all the banks, if people are invested in real estate, that's amazing, wonderful asset. However, what we're seeing is that the banks are being extremely tough on things like refinancing and even qualifying for new loans. Uh, these are the signs of a telling sign of a recession that's on the horizon. In my belief, I think that we were already in a recession. It's not officially declared. The reason why I'm saying that is due to the fact that a lot of companies' data that they talk about their financial markets, right? Their profits every quarter could be somewhat inflated, right? No one wants to come out and say that this is a time where we're not doing well as a company and our financials are suffering. So they don't want to just spook their own stock investors, right? So that's something else to consider. However, they will have to consider coming to the table within the next few months to talk about their all retracement in their own profits, right? And this would be due to the fact that rising interest rates will slow the spending, slow the borrowing. A lot of people live off of the credit card debt system, so that would slow that borrowing process. So that, in a nutshell, we still have, this is a long, drawn-out war between the Ukraine and Russia. Initially, when this occurred, a few months ago, it was thought to be a temporary thing where it's 2 weeks, everyone calls their bluff, and that's it, right? Great. Now it actually turned into something else. So what we have the Russia versus Ukraine. We have a war, many casualties. Rest in peace to all the people that lost their lives. We have intensified conflict in that region, especially when it comes to China taking over Taiwan. No one's really talking about that. It's not making headlines as much. However, Biden came out and said they're going to actually do something about it should China try to invade Taiwan. So the world is bracing for an economic downturn, and all the global financial markets will be affected without a doubt. Bitcoin, let's talk about Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is right now, as everyone, all the investors sees it, it is the number one crypto, right? There's always going to be a debate between Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash, right? Bitcoin Cash being the true peer-to-peer e-cash, or cash payment, digital cash payment system, the true peer-to-peer technology. But a lot of people are still behind the number one, meaning the first crypto that came out, which is Bitcoin. Bitcoin, as I mentioned in some of my previous videos, had some updates that was required on its network in order to perform. So these updates actually were crucial to the marketability of Bitcoin itself in terms of transaction speed and security, etc. With Bitcoin Cash, those modifications were made 5 years ago, back in 2017. And Bitcoin Cash is 5 years old, right? With the new technology updates. Now, Bitcoin, as of last year, which is 2021 fall, Bitcoin also did an upgrade, which really solidified some of the same and similar upgrades that was performed on Bitcoin Cash. Now, the world right now does not fully understand the power of Bitcoin, the power of this technology, which is, as I mentioned, for almost 14 years old. Why does this matter? It matters because we are in a world of global chaos, extreme global chaos. And a lot of it is due to the pandemic, which occurred. Now, the reactive process to that was to print money. So back in 2020, a lot of people got checks, print money, send it to everyone, and everyone will be fine. Yes, we made it through 2020, somewhat 2021, but there were telltale signs of, this huge retracement. How are we going to curb the inflation, right? So the quantitative easing that took place, we are still and we are now suffering because the supply chain shock, which also had an adverse effect on inflation, um, you know, meaning that basically it assisted the inflation to rise rapidly, right? So oil, one of the key factors here, folks, is oil. So oil prices, is probably $140 a barrel. That's doubled in a year. Who knows where that will stop? One of the key signs usually is when oil starts increasing so rapidly in price. That is a telltale sign of a recession that's looming in the corner. So, it's been a tough few years, myself included, and I had to do some pivoting in order to brace myself for certain impacts, right? And I appreciate your time and your presence here and viewing this channel. I'm trying to bring you guys quality information. So this is in a nutshell. If you turn on CNN or if you turn on Fox News or whatever your preference is, you might hear the same headlines. So what I want to reiterate in this time is that this crypto market is very similar to what I saw in 2018. So in 2018 summer, oil prices were up significantly, and lo and behold, in December, a lot of the markets crashed and did a huge retracement, and it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. Some very extreme low numbers back then, but we made it out of that, right? So the recession is typically temporary, and the Feds usually put things in place to stir the pot to get things going and moving again, right? So, but what's happening now is you still have a war. We didn't have that in 2018. So now you have a war with Russia or Ukraine, and you also have possibility of later on towards the end of the year, maybe China invades Taiwan. Perhaps that could be in 2023. So what I want to keep everyone focused here right now is, if you're tuned in to listen to crypto, what's going to happen is Bitcoin is a deflationary asset, right? So the world is in trouble right now. The world is in trouble because a lot of fiat money is really, being devalued as we speak. Every day you wake up, if you have 10,000 in the bank, that 10,000 doesn't get you as far as it used to last, as compared to 2 years ago, right? Why is that? Because everything is rising. The cost of gas, the cost of travel, the cost of meals, your food, right? Food is going up immensely, not just because of the money printing, but remember the supply chain issues, right? Certain products cannot get to certain places on time, etc. And more cost for gas and trucks, etc. So this it's like the perfect storm. So when Jamie Dimon came on television today and said that there's a hurricane in the midst, it might seem sunny, the weather is getting great, everything, if you have a couple grand in your account, you might say, look, I'm going to enjoy some of this, beautiful weather in the summer, and you forget about it, and you just want to live in the moment, which is great. Being present in life is also amazing, but having a plan, a strategic plan, is critical for our well-being and our families, right? So there's a lot of uncertainty that we may run into. In times of economic downturns, it's about cutting costs, spending money on things that are of essentials, value, you know, and then the investing comes after. So what I like about the crypto market is that you know it's a brand new asset class, and that's if I zoom out, that is exactly what it is. It's a brand new asset class, has a lot of runway ahead. Would it take 10 years? It perhaps can. It perhaps might. So in 2024, Bitcoin's supply will be cut in half. The impact of that is sort of felt a year before, typically, or at least 6 months before that countdown begins. And in anticipation of everybody knows that the supply will be cut in 6 months, let's add some Bitcoin to our portfolio. That's the mentality. That's the thought process that many go through. So with that in mind, if that's going to occur in 2024, spring of 2024, roughly May, 2 years pretty much from now, that would make it late 2023, where we can start picking up some momentum, some hype within the crypto market in anticipation of this big event. These are one of the biggest events. Bitcoin is sort of leading the way. And may I remind everyone as well that in 2024, when Bitcoin goes through its deflation, its supply cut, also likewise, Bitcoin Cash will undergo the same thing. So Bitcoin Cash was literally a copy of Bitcoin. Then they made some tweaks to make it more versatile back 5 years ago, right? So the original developers that were working on the Bitcoin network, a lot of them had formed a consensus saying, hey, we need to take Bitcoin, upgrade it, and make it ready for the masses. There was quite the debacle, which is still actually going on today. And I would say, a portion of the developers left and they went to back Bitcoin Cash. So at one point, Bitcoin Cash was higher than Bitcoin, and now we can see Bitcoin Cash is about less than $200 US for one. That will also that is also deflationary. It's a limited 21 million supply. It's 5 years old, and yeah, so that will also be the supply of Bitcoin Cash will also be cut in half in roughly 2 years. So that's something else to keep in mind, right? As the world pivots from this old financial, almost archaic dinosaur financial system, they have to look at new inventions, new technologies, right? So right now, a lot of tech stocks are, drawn back, and that's why we see Bitcoin retracing as well. The crypto market is a 724. It's a very liquid market. The time right now is roughly 11:46 p.m. on June 1st, 2022. If anyone wanted, they can buy Bitcoin. They can sell Bitcoin right now, right? And probably utilize Crypto.com or some other, maybe Coinbase on a Visa card, and just put the money on a Visa and away you go. This is still a buying opportunity. This is a better buying opportunity than my last video back in, a few months ago, where the price of Bitcoin was about 38,000 US. Right now it's about 29,000 US. And some might argue that could be decreasing temporarily to, in somewhat in the $20,000 range. So that is a possibility that Bitcoin could, it's already 28,000. You're only 10 grand, 5-10 grand less to, just drop into 18 grand US, depending on what happens, right? If there's another war or another conflict tomorrow with China and Taiwan, and we still have the supply chain issues, for products globally, and we also have the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. Definitely, this liquid market could really show its hand, in the sense that if any investor need money right away, guess what? They will just pull that into cash and sit on cash for now. So there's a lot of charts here, but I'm not going to talk about all these charts. This is okay. So yeah, a lot of the altcoins. So the altcoin market, when Bitcoin is sort of moving stagnant, or I would say sideways, what that means is sometimes the altcoins can take off. So that's exactly what has happened over the last month. There's many altcoins that are doing well, but you have to be very careful. If you see an alt pump 7%, it can just also drop by 10% the next day. So being a daytime trader takes extreme skill, as well as extreme focus and concentration and patience, right? That's what this market is really showing us right now. So I'm going to check my phone, and I do have, I just wanted to mention one thing. So a lot of chip makers are suffering because of this supply chain issues. And that includes NVIDIA. So NVIDIA is a stock that actually, did phenomenal. This article I'm reading right now, between the start of 2019 and November 2021, it soared 857%. But since the beginning of 2022, shares have plunged 37%. So, if you missed the boat on a company such as NVIDIA, now might be a great time. And even if it goes lower, right, now is still a great time to consider something like that, because NVIDIA is going to be making chips for the Bitcoin mining machines. They're called GPUs. So those chips are very a key component of the Bitcoin mining machines. So as Bitcoin itself becomes more popular, and it is deflationary, and in anticipation of the supply chain cut that is going to occur roughly 2 years from today, guess what? Some pressure on the demand for that product, right? So NVIDIA is something, if it retraced more than 37%, that's great. And they always say patience is key. So crisis usually means opportunity. So crisis also means depression. Crisis also means stress. And in this time, try to, look after your families, your loved ones, as best as possible, although it might be difficult because you're busy looking after yourself. But, in this time, a lot of relationships get destroyed because of, the lack of love, the lack of support, the lack of empathy for one another. So, being there for one another, is a great thing. And love could be the key for the world, right? A lot of people right now are choosing money over love, right? Because they're so stressed, they just want 10 grand or, that pocket, because that $100 mean everything for them, right? A lot of people are going to be unemployed, hey, myself included. So as I mentioned, this is something I do on the part-time, just to provide content for the community. I sit and I do my research, and I get in, very near to the crypto market, and I follow it, right? I've lost a lot, especially since the last year. So we're all in the same boat. Once the whole crypto market retraces, everybody loses. So the key is, this reminds me of 2018. And in 2018, what I was doing was trying to add to my portfolio on a weekly basis, right? So that's called dollar cost averaging. Just buying a little bit here, a little bit there. It was a bear market. So it's like, okay, you know what? If you had an extra $1,000, sure, put it in. All of a sudden, about a year and a half after, all that hard work, all that effort, it started showing because the market started picking up, right? Everyone started saying, "Wow, well, what is Bitcoin? How can I get this?" And then so it went, right? So you can always make money and you use it to survive, and then wait for times like this again, where you can actually repurchase. So Shanghai is a major hub for chip makers. It's been in lockdown since March of this year. Up to 40 other cities are in full or partial lockdown. This has led to a 5% drop in Chinese chip production in March and another 12% in May. That is significant, right? So this article I'm reading here, that was just a paragraph from some of the news reports that I get. So new special report. A shortage like this amid rising demand should be great news for these companies. They're supplying the scarce resource, which is the chips that is required for your iPhone, your Google phone, or what you have, what may have you, and also the Bitcoin mining machines. Okay, so let me just click on this special report. Yeah, so I have to sign into that. So EVs, electronic vehicles or electric vehicles, those are something that you want to keep your eye on. So the chips that are required, that these manufacturers are being dependent on, they're going to be used for AI, 5G networks, electric vehicles, and in this crippled supply chain, it's a serious issue, right? So Intel is another company that has actually signed a contract with the U.S. Department of Defense. So they will actually be, working hand in hand with the U.S. government. And as I mentioned before from this article, Taiwan usually does a lot of the semiconductor manufacturing. That is going to change within the next, 4 to 5 years. They're going to bring all of that back to the United States so they can manufacture their own chips. So that's going to be a leverage in terms of maintaining a dominant posture, a dominant force in the future, right? If you can produce the great chips like Intel, they know how to do it. They just ship it offshore to have, cheaper labor. But if you know how to do it, then guess what? Bring it back to North America, increase the chip price by about 25% to account for this, re-architecture of this manufacturing process, and start with that, right? So the initial pump would be, you would see chip prices increase by 25%, and that would be justified. And as anything goes, every year, account for some inflation, and that chip price will even be more. So the point of the story is, these companies are set to take advantage of this economic downturn, of this supply chain issue. They have strategies in place. So just like these companies have strategies in place, I wanted to help deliver this message that the strategy, when you look at Bitcoin, it's a deflationary asset. And right now, this asset class is mimicking the other, the asset class, such as the stocks, the NASDAQ, the S&P, the global markets, Europe, Asia, etc. So we're suffering through the likes of the global economic downturn. However, as the awareness and demand grows for Bitcoin and the supply cut that's also coming to Bitcoin. And speaking of that word, supply cut, because the Bitcoin is deflationary, its supply will be cut in half in 2 years. Guess what? I think everyone gets it. Everyone by now should understand, when you cut the supply of something, just like the chips, just like your produce, um, vegetables, avocados or etc. When that gets hampered by the supply chain issues, guess what? What we saw was a rapid rise in its value, in its price. So the price action followed. It ensued shortly after. So if you look back 6 months ago, no one was really talking too much about how expensive gas was, right? We knew it was coming. We thought it was coming, but all of a sudden it showed up at the doorstep, and guess what? No one was prepared. Everyone's complaining. The mass majority of people is complaining, right? So likewise, once everyone catches on to the deflationary aspect of Bitcoin, consider yourself very lucky. You're going back in time to be able to purchase an asset class like this for that price. And it might even, in the short term, it's a very volatile. So you can go reduce by 10 grand, you can pump by 10 grand. But once the world wakes up to this, a lot of people have difficulty in saying, hey, what is a digital wallet? How do I download it? This and that. Maybe one day when if this channel becomes bigger than it is, then maybe I can put out some more content for you guys for, how to do certain things, right? So that's it. I just wanted to keep it brief for now. This is June 1st and 11:59 signing off. Thank you so much for your love and support. So love conquers all, and be kind to one another. Peace, love, and happiness.